Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Today, we're talking to Mr. Clint Emerson, former Navy SEAL, was part of SEAL Teams 3 and 6. He's also the author of the books Escape the Wolf, The Right Kind of Crazy, and 100 Deadly Skills. In this podcast, this content is raw, but it's relevant. Clint talks about his experiences as a Navy SEAL and how it transfers into the corporate world. So thanks for tuning in to the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Well, thanks everyone for joining the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Today on our episode, we have a legend with us who is very versed in leadership. We're going to be talking about leadership today. We have with us Mr. Clint Emerson. Clint Emerson is a former Navy SEAL, served in SEAL Teams 3 and SEAL Team 6, did some time with the NSA, and he is an author of many books, a few of which I'm a huge fan of. Escape the Wolf, 100 Deadly Skills, Right Kind of Crazy, which I'm a huge fan of Right Kind of Crazy. That was an epic book, Clint. So, yeah, appreciate you joining the podcast, Clint. I want to talk to you today about not just leadership, Clint, but how leadership assimilates in business. And obviously, you're a man that could speak to that because you transitioned out of the Navy in 2015.
Yeah, I retired. Well, thanks for having me. This will be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I retired in 2015.
Cool, man. So today we'll talk about the transferable skills going from, military, especially in, spec ops teams, to now as an entrepreneur, and how those skills translate into the entrepreneur world or in leadership, in the leadership role in the world, whether you're a business leader or not. So to get right into it, we talked about a few of your books, Clint. I am probably a bigger fan of The Right Kind of Crazy. I thought that book spoke to it, basically a profile, right, of a type of dude that, is very effective in, in life. But from your own narrative, what was your goal with that book? Like, what were you trying to achieve when you wrote Right Kind of Crazy?
Well, initially I didn't plan on doing a memoir. In fact, I was like way against it. But the success of 100 Deadly Skills, my editor pretty much just talked me into it with dollar signs, because I was like, no, I'm not doing one of those. I'm not going to be one of those guys. And there's a point when you're negotiating and doing contracting and all that you can waive maybe some of your own personal thoughts and stuff for a certain level of investment. So I certainly did that, and I embraced it, but I made certain agreements within the contract that I wasn't going to do a Navy SEAL tell-all book of operation, right? I said I would rather it be a little more personal and include lessons learned that everybody can learn from. And so, I sat down and, put together roughly 800 pages of information, and it turned into a 300-page book. And then that 300-page book given to the Pentagon, they cut 100 pages of unclassified information because they just didn't want the truth out there to a certain degree. And then we had to then rewrite the entire manuscript. And what you read is what you got. And we left a lot of the redacted pages. We just left them in place. But if you were reading and you saw one entire page redacted, that's actually equivalent to probably 10 pages straight that they cut. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience.
Wow.
So, but in the end, I think what it does is it delivers just kind of like the, brutal, honest truth. And I feel like a lot of guys, when they write their memoirs, they paint themselves and the SEAL community as all these superheroes. And I think I level set it with just being human. And that was really the main goal, was show the human side, that we're all just a bunch of dudes trying to do what we can to get by each day, whether it's at work or at home, and hopefully neutralize a little bit of the superhero crap and some of the other far-fetched aspects of the SEAL community.
Dude, I like that a lot, man. Level setting is the word you used. I think that's a good word because, you're trying to show everybody that it's not glamorous. Just try to be as genuine as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
So what drew Clint when you decided you wanted to join the Navy and become a SEAL? What drew you to the Navy and becoming a Navy SEAL?
It's an interesting story. So I grew up in Saudi Arabia, right? And so
Yep.
the Saudis, they don't want anybody in their country for more than a year at a time. So my dad was working for Aramco, which is the biggest oil company in the world. And it's a trimester system there. So you go to school for 3 months, off a month, 3 months, off a month, 3 months, off a month. So it's basically all year round, but you get 3 30-day breaks. And when you approach your 11-month mark with your visas, they give you $5,000 per head to just go out of country, go on vacation, and come back with everything renewed and get back to work or get back to school. So you basically had a 30-day vacation pretty regularly, right?
Sure.
And this is in the 80s, so $5,000 a head is a lot of money. And so one of our stops was always through Frankfurt, Germany. My mom's full-blooded German, so we'd always visit some family there. We're at the Frankfurt airport at our gate, and I walk across from the gate to the restaurant bar and wanted a Coke because the Saudis don't allow Cokes in their country, right? And so went over there, and there's a guy standing there at the bar, and he's in shape. He's got a tattoo kind of coming out from underneath his sleeve. I was a curious kid, so I was like, hey, what's that? He's like, yeah, it's a trident. I'm like, what's a trident? He's like, it's a symbol, represents, a military special operations job. And I'm like, what's that? And so I kind of just kept digging in deeper and deeper with this guy. And he's like, well, where are you from, kid? And I'm like, oh, I grew up in Saudi, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, do you remember when we bombed Libya? And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I was in Boy Scouts. And so I was color guard for when Vice President George Bush came in country and briefed everyone. And I got to hold the American flag on the stage next to him. But he talked about, hey, if anything happens, we're going to have C-130s and some other stuff. If Libya does anything funny. Obviously, he didn't give up any war plans, but he was just kind of nonchalant, like, hey, and all you Americans, we've got your back. We're surrounded by the enemy. You got Iraq and Iran and this. And kind of lump summed it. Basically, it was like there's going to be C-130s available to get anybody out of here if need be. Sure. We lived on a compound, and concertina wire kind of made you wonder as a kid, like, are they trying to keep us in, or what are they trying to keep out? And then there was anti-aircraft guns all the way around these little American compounds. But I give you that background because this guy's like, all right, so when we bombed Libya, me and my buddies went in and took out all the anti-aircraft guns so that these bombers wouldn't get shot out of the sky. And I was like, what do you mean you took them out? He's like, well, we snuck in at night and we killed everybody that was manning these guns. And then we put, explosives on the anti-aircraft gun and blew them in place. And then these B-111s could fly and not have to worry about anything shooting them out of the sky. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. So as soon as I heard that story, that was it, because there wasn't really any books. There was no internet. It was pretty barbaric as far as information goes back then. And once he told me that story, man, I was like, Patty, and now he's certified diver. By the time, the minimum age was 12, I did that. And I finished out scouting and, all the field craft that I could learn, and tried to set myself up for success and as much as I could with limited information. And that was it, man. So that was about 10 years old when I heard that story. Now, fast forward. I show up to SEAL Team 3, and I'm like, there's got to be record, because SEAL Team 3 owned the Middle East regionally, right? SEAL Team 3 was the desert operation team at the time.
Yep.
So I go through, talk to all these old guys who were still there, like, hey, who were the guys that went and did the whole Libya thing? And they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, that didn't happen here. I'm like, huh, maybe that was SEAL Team 6. So then when I get to SEAL Team 6, I ask about the Libya thing. Well, it turns out that SEAL Team 6 wasn't even on the map yet.
On the map.
You know,
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
that was ahead of its time. And so basically, this fraud standing at a bar telling fraudulent stories because that mission never happened.
Oh,
you
man.
know,
Got you in the Navy.
ignited me to do that whole path. And then you find out later that Navy SEAL is like one of the most fraudulent jobs, ever. It's like somebody did a study and it's like 1 out of 360 people that say they're a SEAL are real. The rest are all frauds, and it's crazy. But yeah, so there you go. Long story, but that's kind of how it all came to fruition.
Well, I know it's a little bit of a sidebar, but isn't Shipley's dad, Don Shipley, doesn't he go after those dudes that
Yes.
make up these fraud stories?
Yeah, he's been doing that called the Wall of Shame for, fuck, man, it seems like since YouTube was invented, he's been doing it.
Yeah, and who wants that job? But, man, it's a relevant job, right? Like going after all the phonies.
Well, now it's a felony.
It's a felony.
Federal crime now.
And as it should be.
If you say you're anything in the military that you were not, to include awards, it's definitely stolen valor. So there's a consequence system in place, but it doesn't stop it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the origin and your military history, Clint. In your perspective, being in the military, what separates a good leader from a great leader?
Man, a good leader from a great, I would say, answers the question why beforehand. You notice the difference between someone who just tells you what to do and expects you to do it versus the guy who will give you the why and then tell you what you need to do, right? So I think that why is really important. In the military, I think some of your more aggressive leaders think you just tell them what to do and they'll listen kind of thing. But that it doesn't work. And culture obviously drives the train. So the military, even though that may not work, it is part of the culture.
Sure.
You do what you're told and you don't ask why. But really good leaders in the military, like a McRaven, he was always really good about pretty much giving the why and then telling you what needs to happen in order for everything to be successful, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about what's going to end in a zero fail. You're creating zero fail missions, and there's no room for failure. So I think starting with why is really the difference. Now you translate that to the corporate world, and there's no way you can just tell somebody what to do and expect them to do it without giving them the why. So,
without giving them the why, absolutely. From my own perspective, I had a first sergeant in the Corps that actually was in the movie Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood, recon Marine his whole career, and he comes to us as a first sergeant. The dude had no emotion, and so for me, in my own perspective, I was always enamored by the guys that could lead with zero emotion and just be stoic and just execute. So that's very interesting. And so from your perspective, what lessons in leadership, Clint, in chaos, do you think assimilate in business?
I think the big one is the ability to remain calm. Sounds simple, but a lot of people just freak out across the board, whether it's business, your personal life, or in the military. I've seen, even seasoned, team guys have their moment in chaos, and then they collect themselves and then get back on the calm train again. But I think remaining calm and giving yourself that couple of minutes, that whether it's an air gap, a moment of silence, whatever you need to really collect yourself internally before you make any crazy decisions or really say anything out loud. I'd almost say, hey, just keep your mouth shut, for that first minute or two of whatever is creating the chaos, and then be deliberate, be honest, but make sure that you remain calm above everything else.
I love the be deliberate and be honest, be integral, because I think those are key elements.
Yeah.
for sure. And so how do you think leaders could prepare, even in the business world, Clint? You know, we're obviously two entrepreneurs in the business world. How do you think leaders can prepare for chaos without actually being a former operator, a SEAL, a Marine in the corporate world?
I think what ifing still plays a big role in when you sensitize your mind or your team to the possibility of different events and outcomes in itself by going through, okay, if this happens, you know, how you're going to react, what you're going to do, what is the protocol, getting ahead of it through conversations, discussions, you know, whether you got to, you know, tabletop it. There's a lot of different, I think, drills you can do that sensitize and calibrate everybody to all of those moments of chaos. And then if it does happen, the beauty of it is you're putting time on your side, right? So if I drill something and I train it and I train to worst case scenario, well, now I already know what my protocols are. I know the decisions that I'm going to make so that when things go bad, all I have to do is act out the very decisions that I've already made in calm, right?
Yep.
And because I'm able to do that quickly, I'm putting time on my side. Time is, I always refer to time because time can be an adversary or it can be an ally. And if you put time on your side, that leads to options, right? And options and opportunity, which then equals survivability of whatever that problem set is.
So I definitely agree with you. And I would even go so far as to say, you know, and how that translates in the business world in combat, it all boils down to how many rounds you have, how much time on target you have, and when you have to extract, right? In business, that assimilates to you run out of funding, or your funding gets pulled, or product fails, or customer experience anomalies that you have to fight through. And as you said earlier in the podcast, Clint, a lot of people freak out. It's like, no, you ought to be training for this. And from my own angle, it's practical application because Marines are training all the time. It's repetitive. Because as you know, when things go south, you literally have to rely on muscle memory, right? And so I feel like, and even in business, you know, when you're going through those experiences, a lot of people freak out. People shut their businesses down. That's when businesses fail because they don't have a contingency plan for the failure, or they're not training on muscle memory. They're not doing practical applications, so they don't have a solution to the problem.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I see that happening a lot. And so when we're talking about trust and standards, how have you in your past built an unshakable team with trust?
Well, time in the saddle, once again, plays a big role, right? You have to train together. You need to be vulnerable with one another. You need to go out and do non-work related functions together, right? And as many experiences as you can rack up in different environments ultimately is what gels people together, right?
Sure.
And the more uncomfortable those experiences are, probably the more solid that team is going to be. So there is a place for team building events and companies that mirror military training. We've seen it. I've got buddies that do it all the time. But when you put a group of people in those scenarios, yeah, they may know each other. That's in a cubicle farm with artificial light. But then you take them out into the sunlight or the rain and make them do hard stuff together, uncomfortable stuff together. Now all of a sudden they really get to know each other. They know each other's weaknesses and strengths in a whole other way. They learn to trust each other and they bond. And once you've got that bond there, then yeah, you know that you can all face whatever the problem is and get through it just fine together because you can reference all the experiences that you've had which is like proof that, hey, no matter what we face, we're going to be okay.
Sure. Yeah. And for you, Clint, what's your non-negotiable as a leader?
Man, probably the biggest one I faced as a leader was just quitting. Like, if you're a quitter, then, get the fuck out of here. I had this kid, man. He was a new guy, and he was really funny. Everybody liked him. Gets through buds, gets through SQT, gets his trident, comes into my platoon, and I'm in a leadership role, and it's time to go to war. So this is, after SEAL Team 3 had already kind of kicked off Afghanistan, then we got tasked with, okay, now you're going to kick off Iraq. And so our first gig was taking down the largest gas oil platform in the world, right? It was to prevent that catastrophic environmental disaster because Saddam was always threatening you, like he did in Desert Storm. He just light everything on fire. So we go and take down this gas oil, or the mission was, hey, you got to take this thing down. CIA was like, there's like, a couple of bad guys and a hostage on this thing. No problem for, 17 SEALs. We're like, okay. And so, we go out, and this is about 25, maybe a little further, clicks off the coast of Kuwait. And this gas oil platform has all the 85% of the oil that Iraq has comes out to this gas oil platform. It's massive. It's a click long. It's 7 decks tall. You can pull 4 ships up to this thing and fill them up all at the same time, right?
Oh, man.
And this kid in the brief, I kind of sensed it. He starts asking questions that had doubt built into them, right? Like, hey, is this smart? This sounds like a suicide mission. Why are we doing this again? And I'm looking at him each time because all of our leadership is in there like, shut the fuck up, first of all, but it was one of those moments where the leadership's like, does anybody have any questions? And this kid's asking these like, doomsday questions. And obviously in the back of everybody's mind is this a good idea or not? That's always there with everything you do. But that's why you plan, and that's why you communicate. And, you talk through all the courses of action and determine the best one so that you have increased, successful outcomes. That's why you do all that. So afterwards, I pull him aside. I'm kind of like, hey, what's going on? Why are you asking questions that have doubt? Doesn't sound good. Like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm fine. What, are you having doubts? I mean, why are you asking me this? Sounds like you're the insecure one. He immediately flips it on me. And right then I knew this kid's not going to be around long. And I was like, whatever, man, just get your shit ready. We're going to go. And, within an hour of going and doing this op, he doesn't come to me. He goes to one of our officers and says, hey, yeah, I've got a wife, I've got a wife. I want to have kids. I want to go to college. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not going.
Are you kidding? And then, he's got the trident.
Yeah. Yeah. It was his first deployment. He's got through all that bullshit.
Oh,
and then first time it's time to go act. This is the pinnacle, right? The pinnacle of any military guy's career is war, right?
Yeah.
In no other realm does that exist.
That's right.
War,
that's it. Yeah.
Yes, let's do it. We love this shit. This is what we want to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It takes a rare breed to want to go do that kind of thing, and it doesn't matter how great an athlete you are to get through buds, or even how mentally tough you are to get through buds. He proved that, there's that will to put yourself in harm's way. That's a difficult thing in training to really, truly emulate until it's real world. Real world is you're really putting your life in harm's way,
Yeah.
Jumping out of an airplane for training, blowing shit up, shooting guns, all that doesn't really, you look at it as training. You don't know that, you could die at any minute in training too, but much different than going and facing an enemy. And so, we ended up doing the go plat without, I didn't, immediately pulled his trident, pulled all his gear, put him in dungarees, gave him his little Dixie cup, and then made him sit in Kuwait the rest of the deployment, sweeping the warehouses. And, we didn't, the guys back in Kuwait basically just treated them like garbage and then sent them to the fleet as soon as we got back, as soon as they could. But yeah, if you've got any of that, doubt, the reservation, hesitation, quitter mentality, then you're not going to be a good teammate. So yeah, long answer, but you get it.
No, it's perfect, man. And obviously we know that in excuse me, real world examples in combat, but it does translate in the corporate world. If you don't have the tenacity to fight through these issues you're going to face as an entrepreneur, you're not going to make it.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and one key thing I think you said, Clint, that I love is you talked about planning. And I always tell everybody, and we've heard this, this adage a million times, if you fail to plan to fail.
That is true. No doubt about it. Have something, and it is true too. Like, a plan is great until the first shot's fired. That definitely holds true too. But at least you've got something that serves as a backbone to the rest of the operation. Of course, you're going to run into obstacles and surprises, but the plan is there because it's the structure, it's the skeleton to the whole thing.
That's right.
And you default to it even when things get crazy. So
yeah. Or as Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth.
That's right.
Right. So if I could take just a quick second, for all you entrepreneurs out there, I want you to absorb all of this information that Clint and I are talking about, because although these stories are related to his experiences as a Navy SEAL and some of the experiences that I shared as a Marine, they're very practical in the corporate world, and they are transferable skills. And whether or not you were in the military or a spec ops dude or you're, former military, these practices and these principles apply in business. The no-quit mentality. And so, Clint, if we were to pivot a little bit and kind of shift gears, what is your advice to military dudes or veterans that want to become an entrepreneur or a business leader in the corporate world? What's your advice to them?
I would, I think a big piece that I learned is, you're going to have more failures than successes. So, a lot of times people only hear about the successful stuff, but the reality is, in order to get to that successful aspect, it was probably a bunch of failures, or you got lucky. I felt like to a certain degree, I got lucky because I had a network, and you hear about networking in business, and it is, people that do it know how important it really is. Me transitioning out, number one, for current active duty, I'd say make sure you have a plan and start executing it, at that 24-month mark before you retire or you get out. Put as much time and effort as you can while you got a paycheck so that you can step out and pay yourself. It's totally doable. In my case, I had put together Escape the Wolf, the book, and it's a book full of lessons learned from doing solo operations, for half a career. And it was a 3-ring binder. Then I self-published it because I just wanted to look like a book, and I was handing it out for free to everybody who came through any of my training when I was running this 3-month pipeline at NSA. And so I'd hand that out, say, hey, these are all the lessons learned. Take it for what it's worth, And that book got passed around in the contracting world, ended up in the hands of a retired FBI guy that happened to be the global security director for the Wall Street Journal. And everything he read in that book, he was like, man, I want all of my journalists to learn this stuff. So he calls me up and says, hey, can you turn all of this into e-learning? And I was like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, man. I'm in the Navy and I'm just, I was like, but yeah, sure. And so I went to some developer in DC and gave him the book and said, how do I turn this into e-learning, whatever that is? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And I put roughly $60,000 on my USAA credit card, and I didn't even have a contract. I didn't know if this guy was actually going to really buy it. And so that's the next piece is if you're going to take risks on yourself, take risks on your own ideas. About 8 months goes by, develop all the e-learning. I call this guy back up and said, hey, I put all that e-learning together. And he's like, oh, okay, well, send me a link or something. So I sent him the link, and he comes back like a month later. He's like, yeah, I finally looked at it. It looks great. How much? I'm like, I don't know. How much do you think it's worth? And so he was nice enough to kind of guide me on that part. And, Wall Street Journal became my first client. But if I hadn't have written, put everything into a 3-ring binder and turned it into this book and hadn't passed it around and hadn't created a network, from all my time in the military, then, none of this stuff would have ever happened. And, books these days are business cards. They're not, everybody's got a book. And that's really how you should look at it. And also, if you want to be considered a subject matter expert in something, then take all that information and thoughts that you have and put them into a book. It doesn't have to be a big book. It just needs to be a book. And so, it's expect to fail, make sure you got a great network, and constantly take risks on yourself rather than on other people.
Sure. All great advice. And so what mindset habits do you form that keeps you grounded and effective?
I think routine is everything. I'm like anyone else. I got great routine I have, but I can definitely, fall off the wagon from time to time. Whether it's travel or life, just kind of gets in the way. But as long as you have a routine and you know what it is, and you're doing it more times than not, that routine will allow you to be consistent. And that consistency piece is what drives the train. Don't look at anything as an obstacle or a problem. Just look at it as an opportunity to learn, and then take all those lessons learned, write them down so you can, if you got a bad memory like me, you can refresh yourself on it from time to time. Go, oh yeah, your routine, write it down, because that way once you fall off the wagon or life gets the best of you, you go, oh yeah, I need to go back to doing that again. And my routine is everything. It's I get up in the morning, I do the reading piece, I adopted the meditation piece, the journaling piece. And we're not talking, total for all that is 30 minutes. It's not a time suck, but it's a way you start your day before the day actually gets started. And then that rolls right into workout mode. I have my gym broken up into 3 components. I got the human performance part, which is just, all of your strength and endurance. And then I have my combatives area where you're just, letting out frustration in whatever form you want. And then you've got a sauna that, you can get on Amazon these days for like $1,200. And, and that's it. That's my routine that kicks off the day. And then that's what sets the tone for the rest of the routine to follow, which is then, put the easy tasks up front and get them over with. That way you get those successes under your belt early, and then start tackling your more complicated ones. And then by the time the day is over, you've accomplished a shit ton of stuff, and you've exercised your body, you've exercised your brain, which then goes right into sleep, because that's another important component. And you'll end up sleeping a whole lot better than the sleep you get on a lazy day where you did absolutely nothing. There you go.
Well said. Well said, man. Yeah. No, I love that. I talk a lot about tapping my core every day. To me, it's essential for you to tap your core. Even when I'm on my morning runs, I try to keep it routine, and I'm up pretty early. I still get up very early, but my routine is get up, drink my water, and set off on my run.
That works. That's a form of meditation.
Yep, it sure is. So for you, Clint, and I know, leadership to you probably is different now that you're out of the Navy. You're not in part of the SEAL teams anymore. But what type of leader are you trying to be now?
Probably
Because I know it's much different.
Yeah. When I was in, I learned from a lot of guys that are famous these days. I saw them. They were my example. Even in Boy Scouts, when you're a patrol leader, and then I became a troop leader and all that. There's a lot I learned there, but I think where you're at and what you're doing drives what kind of leader you are. So now I'm dealing with a lot of companies, so being more corporate with how I present myself and my language, and um, you know, definitely times when you have to bite your tongue, right? That does the military style works when you dilute it a little bit and you change the nomenclature here and there. But me having corporations as clients, then I have to basically mirror them. So at the beginning, I'm a blank slate and I'm just all ears, right? Like a new guy. I leverage new guy rules still to this day, right? It's all ears, no mouth, show up early, stay late, volunteer for everything, basically, shut the fuck up. And it works. And so I do that when I'm dealing with, especially if it's a first time client, get on those Zoom calls. I'm a blank slate. I'm a new guy. I'm the new guy. And I treat it like that. And it gives me an opportunity to hear them. What's the vibe I get, right? So I can tell you, like, if it's healthcare or health insurance companies that are clients, that's like dealing with a government agency. And it's very sterile. There's a lot of decision makers and a lot of stakeholders, and there's a lot of people on those email chains. And, so that's a certain kind of, when I'm leading that project that I just sold them, that's a different style than if I'm going to a heavy sales world where everyone's alpha mentality in the product I'm selling them there. I know I know the kind of person I'm dealing with. And so I would say overall these days, my leadership style is very flexible. It's very chameleon-like. And I adapt to whatever is right in front of me so that you maintain good rapport and you maintain that client for life.
Dude, I like that a lot. When I was in the Corps, when I was assigned to a new platoon as a platoon sergeant, I literally would not talk for 2 weeks. I would go through the routine. I'd do my roll call in the morning, in formation, but I wouldn't say anything because I wanted to learn the environment in which I was in. I wanted to learn about the people, their profile, and who my killers were and who my slackers were, so that I could then make fine-tune adjustments, after the 2-week evaluation, if you will.
I like that.
Yeah, so I'll ask you some poignant questions, and you could just give brief answers to. But what one trait do you feel like every leader should possess?
Communication skills. I mean, you die. That's number one. Like, you have got to be able to communicate the thought or idea, whatever the mission is. You have to be able to give the why. You have to be able to explain everything to the dumbest person in the world, right? So I remember I've had leaders that were, Harvard and Ivy League, and they loved leveraging the thesaurus of brain that they have and talking way above what was necessary, for what was in front of them. And so common language, blue collar works. You don't have to dress it up or try to sound smarter than everyone in the room, because the odds are you're not. And so communication should always be at the blue collar level, but still in a manner that is, civilized and understandable, right?
Yeah, man.
It's for us, we're SEAL teams is run by the enlisted. You're not dropping F-bombs every other word like you would in SEAL teams, right? So you got to clean it up and Sorry, can you guys hear that? You can edit this part out, but I've got a landscape guy right here at my window, but he's almost gone.
Yeah, no problem. No problem,
okay.
man. Yeah, we can edit that out. Yeah, so,
right,
all that makes cool.
But yeah, it's really communication at the simplest level so that you have the largest audience comprehending what the hell you're saying.
Yep, absolutely. And so what book or resource would you recommend somebody for leadership in the corporate world?
Leadership? Man. There's a bunch that early on I was reading. Good to Great, I think, is really good. It's been around for decades at this point. Yeah. I think it's a great book. Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is great if you want to have if you're in a leadership position, you want to have more of a strategic mindset.
Yep.
Man, just lost the title. The 300. It was in the SEAL teams. We all had to read it. The movie The 300 is based on Firegate. It's a Spartan. It's the whole, the 300, the movie.
Yeah.
It was based on Fire at the Gates or Hell at the Gates. What the hell's the title of that book? Anyway, anybody listening is probably saying it out loud right now, but that too was a required, before there was a movie, that book was required reading at SEAL Team 3.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. I'll probably think of better ones later, but right now those are the ones that jumped out.
Yeah, there's probably a bunch, and I love, Jim Collins is a great author. Ray Dalio wrote a great book called Principles. That's an epic book. I think everybody should be required to read that book. But yeah, and I've read Blue Ocean Strategy. That's a great book about getting out of the shark-infested waters in business and differentiating yourself against everyone else by developing the strategy and the product and the go-to-market. But to you, what's more dangerous, a bad leader or no leader?
A bad leader by far. Yeah, I mean, especially whether it's SEAL teams or outside in these corporate environments, a bad leader can drive everything into the ground, can create hate and discontent, can be toxic. It can be, an environment where everybody just jumps boat and says, fuck it, I'm out of here, and, or in the military, it leads to, bad decisions, which can then, end lives. And, I definitely had one or two of those, but they don't last long, in the SEAL teams because can't hide. There's no way you can hide bad leadership because the results on the back end is what decides whether or not you did a good job, right?
Sure.
So if all your missions are good to go, it's solid, successful, then that guy's going to stick around. But if they're not, then that guy's gone, and it's like in a heartbeat. There's they're not wasting any time with those. So it's very rare for anyone to get through a career or make it that far in the military if they're a bad leader. I think you've probably witnessed it too. Whereas now you switch over to corporate. Yeah, there's some people that can get away with it for quite some time. They just blame others and figure out how to weasel their way around, whether it be just jumping from company to company and somehow they pick up a little bit more rank or, move up the corporate ladder each time, and before you know it, they're running the show, and you're just like, how the hell did this guy get here?
Yeah.
It's not to say that it doesn't happen in the military. It just really depends. I would say in the ranks of combat, it doesn't last, but maybe on the administrative side, you've got some little weasels running around that get away with shit, but
No, that's well said.
Yeah.
That's well said. And I think you're right, Clint. I think in the corporate environment, in a non-critical environment, they get away with it a lot more because it's not critical. But you tend to get away with a lot less in a critical environment when lives are at stake, you're in combat, you're sending rounds down range.
For sure.
But when you, in the corporate world, when you report to stakeholders, you're on the chopping block, just like a NFL coach, right? For a big team, because if you're not performing, you're out. So, like I used to say in the Marine Corps, just execute. If you're not executing, you got to go.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I like that a lot. So as we try to wrap up a little bit, Clint, talk to me a little bit about your new project, the Ready Room.
So the Ready Room has been in the works for literally years. It's just moved around, but it is a one-stop shop for safety, security, survivability content. It is cheap. It's an app. It's in every app store. It's also on every smart television as a channel that you can subscribe to. But we have a lot of subject matter experts we bring to bear and put together entertaining, informative content that focuses on safety, security, and survivability, which has been most of my post-military career has been just that. Along with that, I've also Escape the Wolf, the book, became a company once I had the Wall Street Journal. It's word of mouth. Sorry. And it's really become a crisis management company focusing on unique problem sets. And we will come in and whatever that problem is, we've become fixers, and we, number one, make sure that problem set goes away and protect the company, protect the people, protect the assets across the board. And so those really, the Ready Room, providing all that content, that most of it is derived from all the successful books that have been out. But we've also brought in subject matter experts from all over the place. So if you want to learn combatives, whether it's fist, knife, pistol, rifle, we've got guys that are experts in each of those verticals teaching it, right? And if you want to learn just basic survivability stuff, we have a series in there for that. That was sponsored by 511. If you want to learn cyber threats, we've got cyber threat stuff. So it's really, truly that one-stop shop of everything under the umbrella of safety, security, and survivability. And then, of course, Wolf is kind of like the corporate version of that, right? I'm rolling into these companies and we're solving their problem. Their problem could be active shooter based, or it could be, they're trying to sell a property and they've got issues with it that need to be rectified, first. And then even sexual predators. We've rolled in and solved sexual predator issues where law enforcement, just can't handle it, or there's a gap in manning, equipment, time, experience, you name it. We can roll in and fill that gap.
That's awesome, man. And so how do people find you, Clint? Obviously, we know about ClintEmerson.com, but how do people find you on social media or otherwise?
Yeah, on social, 100 Deadly Skills. I made the mistake in making all my handles the first book series, because I didn't think I was going to actually keep writing books. I was just creating a handle for the book, and then it became multiple books. But so 100 Deadly Skills, Clint Emerson, Escape the Wolf. You can Google any of that stuff. And unfortunately, there's plenty of information and links that'll get you to any of the destinations you're looking for in my world.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, so in closing, Clint, definitely appreciate the time, the collaboration today, just sharing some kind of thoughts and ideas about leadership. And for you listeners out there that is listening to this content, it's raw content. And the reason why it's raw is because these are real world principles that work in any kind of environment, whether it's a corporate environment, a leadership role, or whether you're a young guy, maybe you're a young dude considering joining the military. These skill sets do transfer into the business realm and definitely help you accelerate or leverage your business. So, Clint, thanks for joining us today, man, and definitely want to, follow up, later on down the road and kind of summarize some things. So.
No, thanks for having me. It's a great show. Love the information you're putting out.